G'day people, and welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Chats with Heff and Checkers. This time we're looking at round 8. Checkers, you had a busy week last week here at Jack Crisp's, consecutive games record celebration. It's a pretty random event, but tell us about that. How was last week?
Yeah, I was a bit here, there and everywhere. I was at North Melbourne doing some promo for the North Essendon game. Found myself in the rooms on Thursday night and somehow got wrangled into the Channel 7 coverage with Rui and Hamish McLaughlin. And then, Saturday I had a bit more feeling when Jack Crisp took that mark because I'd seen him during the week and I'd spent an hour with him at his press conference and we interviewed him and did a few videos with him. So when he took that mark, just before the siren rang, it was like, geez, those boots he's wearing, I had in my hands, and I was talking to him just a couple of days ago, so I had a bit more feeling. I feel like it was like, well, I really hope he kicks this because got to know his story and know him as a person. But that was a cracking game, and every other game on the weekend sort of stank. So
there wasn't any sense of guilt when he missed it. You're like, oh shit, that was my fault.
Probably my fault probably my fault for asking him dumb questions in the preparation to his biggest game. But yeah.
Oh, well, like I said before the show, you live, you learn, mate. It's all good. I'm sure he's not holding a grudge against you or anything like that. I'm sure he'll let you interview him again in the future.
Hopefully.
Right, let's talk about
he's a good man. I will just say we had the week with Crispy and the week with Essendon and North, but this week coming to Adelaide, so might even bump into you on the hill, hopefully. Showdown time. So we've got a big week of, maybe not a big week of fantasy coming up, but we've got a big week of footy coming up with that big rivalry game on Saturday night. So
yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. I love it when you guys come across to Adelaide. Is it just you or you're bringing the whole crew?
The whole crew's coming across. We're coming across to... I don't know if people are tuning into this for this sort of information, but I'm actually DJing at halftime of the Showdown. So if you're there, keep an eye out on the big screens. I'll spin a few tunes.
Yeah, nice.
don't know which ones, but yeah.
All right, I'll make sure I record a few videos of the big screens then.
But back into fantasy chat.
Let's do it. How'd you go on the weekend?
Okay and not okay. I don't know. There was some good parts and some bad parts. I traded in Ned Long after speaking about him last week in the pod. He scored okay. I think it was an 87, which is good, above what he's priced at. I traded in Hugh Boxall, and he went really well as well. So there's some positives there where I didn't mess up my trades. I finally nailed a captain. I got Harry Sheasel, first time nailing a captain in a while, as the VC on the Thursday. But then also had like Libba as a point of difference player, scoring a 50 sort of hurts your rankings a fair bit, and then Cozzy Pickett back-to-back 60s is sort of hurting my whole season in general. So sitting at 5'8", 7'8", so I dropped off, I think, maybe 1,800 ranks, but yeah, I think the trades maybe got me back on track for where I need to be going before the buys. Like the trades were positive, so that's a good thing, I guess. Sorry,
I might have missed it, but what was your total score for the week?
I don't know. I'm not. Didn't really check that one. I don't check it too heavy. Everyone always looks at the score 2-1-1-6. So
2-1-1-6. Okay,
there's
cool.
some scores of 2-400 this weekend, which was quite big.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Libba sort of being a point of difference player. When your point of difference players don't score too well, you notice it extra. It really comes on heavy. When a Sheasel or someone doesn't score too well, I mean everyone's got him in their team, but Libba's just in 10% of teams, or 8% of teams. So it hurts a bit more to your rankings.
Yeah, on my team, I went 21-60, so just a tiny bit ahead of you there. Same deal though, Libba absolutely killing me being your unique in the midfield. Did the same trade as you, brought Long in. I think the Clayton Oliver omission managed, whatever, kind of caused a few people to do that trade. So I think that was a pretty popular trade during the week because it still allowed me to go, I can't remember, did Sam Lawler up to Petrarca on the back of that. So nice to get him in for 121 on debut. Also had the Sheasel VC. I would have gone if I didn't, if Sheasel didn't kind of turn it up. So, like, not upset getting 268 from him, but it could have been, over 300 from Gawn as well. So, it is what it is. So it doesn't really matter too much. 2160 for me. Rank has come up to 8,795 overall. So
we're getting close. We're getting close to each other.
Not going too bad. Just slowly clawing it back.
3,000 apart. Buys are just 3 weeks away. I was looking at that today with the structure a lot when I was looking at my trades, and it's heavily playing on my mind. So it's getting to the important end of the season. It's where it's chaos ball for 4 or 5 weeks there with the buys. So, a bit excited for the next 4 or 5 weeks.
I have not looked at the buys at all, so it could be in a bit of danger.
That's where I swipe in. Blokes don't look at the buy, and I just swipe on in. So,
well, the thing is, like in previous years,
maybe we stop talking about the buys. Don't want to talk about them. Don't talk about them. That'd be good for everyone.
In previous years, I've planned meticulously for buys, and I reckon it's screwed me every time, because I reckon the guy in like the last 2 anyway, and I reckon the people that just kind of wing it have like been better off, because like a random spanner gets thrown in the works and everyone gets screwed over anyway, and it didn't matter in the end from all the planning that you did anyway. You couldn't plan for the circumstances that were going to happen. A gun gets dropped or gets injured or something like that, and you're kind of forced to do other things. So this year I've kind of just taken a back seat and, I don't know, not looking at it too closely. It probably goes with my ranking, shows with my rankings out though. Supercoach this week. I know you probably don't want to talk about your team at the moment, Checkers, now that I've just seen your rank. But done all right this week as well. Like, I had Max Gawn captain there, so it makes it a lot easier when you get someone scoring you 250 points. More than that, 400 points as your captain, so that helps out with a 2,456 score for me by the end of the round there, which put me up another 2,000 spots. So currently sitting at 6,454 and sitting inside the top 3%. So pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I got done in by the captain choice on the weekend. There was a lot of good scores for captains. I mean, Geordie Dawson plugged 150, Sheasel with the 120, had Gawn with the massive score. And I decided McRae scored 160. So, there would have been some big scores. I saw some like 2,400, 2,500 type scores. And I rolled Tom de Koning thinking he would tower Riley O'Brien up, and he scored 80. So I probably lost out at about 150, 200 points there.
Riley O'Brien's
fast becoming that.
Riley O'Brien's fast becoming that ruck that's pretty hard to play against. So, it might be something to note in terms of the matchup. But anyways, we'll get stuck into the main kind of point of the show. Who's your pot of the week this week?
My pot of the week is actually going to be someone who hasn't played a game yet and is coming off a massive injury. But KEIDEAN Coleman played in the VFL on the weekend. And in that game, I mean, I'm hoping everyone would have seen Braden Fiorini scored a 200 in the VFL with a massive score. It was all over my Instagram feed. Fiorini, the GOAT, Dossie would have been up and about. But KEIDEAN Coleman actually had the second highest score in that game. 28 disposals, 131 fantasy points. Could be back into the side. They play on Sunday this week in Hobart. I mean, Hobart's not a great sign for him with the travel, but he's got the Sundays. He's got a couple extra days to recover. And he's only at 521k. Obviously very low ownership. I think it's like 3%, and I think the 3% are probably people who aren't playing the game properly. But when you look at some of the defensive options that you've got in terms of rookies, so you got like Riley Bice scored up his lowest score of the year on the weekend. He's at 670k. O'Sullivan 445k. I think he scored one of his lowest scores of the year on the weekend. So you could downgrade these guys to KEIDEAN Coleman, who we know has got scoring potential and scoring history, and the role at Brisbane can be quite nice. I will note, you can always give these guys 1 week. The sub factor's an issue. Maybe just getting back into their position or role. We've seen Jasper Fletcher maybe take some of his role, so maybe he might have to win his role back. But at 521k, it's a pretty juicy option for a downgrade / upgrade in my eyes. So you're getting rid of a rookie and getting someone in who you can sort of trust a bit more. So if you're looking to flick one of those defensive options off, I think KEIDEAN Coleman's the pod.
Yeah, I don't mind that one. Because you've got probably some guys like Jaden Short who are kind of stagnant with their price, underperforming anyway. You're probably going to get a similar output from KEIDEAN Coleman. My only concern is Jasper Fletcher's been playing pretty good. Dane Zorko is back on the halfback flank. The whole reason why Dane Zorko made the shift was because KEIDEAN Coleman got injured. So more so just, does one of them go out of the defence, or do you think they all kind of coexist in there and they all affect each other's scoring? What do you think happens there?
Yeah, I wonder if it changes like an Answorth or someone like that. I mean, they might be a bit taller, a bit more locked down, but it's just the fact that he's going to be very high owned, I think, KEIDEAN Coleman in maybe 5 weeks. But if you jump on him early and he does bang out a quick, 90, 100, you can sort of get a jump on everyone. You can save a couple 100k because you'll get him at his cheapest. But I think he scored well in the VFL, smack bang, first crack. Plays North Melbourne first up on a Sunday, so he gets a bit of extra rest. 521k. He's cheaper than all the defensive rookies. You got Zach Reid, Trainer, O'Sullivan, Bice. So, if he's named on Sunday and he's named in the back pocket or a halfback flank, I think he's pretty good to score at a minimum what the rookies are scoring. So it's a downgrade upgrade in my eyes. That's my saying I've been telling myself.
Well, my thinking is like if you go from short down to him, like you're probably only costing yourself 10 points per game max, but you'd gain yourself 300k, you know, and that means you could probably go someone like Levi Ashcroft up to like $1 million player. From there, if you wanted to kind of jump off of Ashcroft's, cash gen from last week, because his break even's only 44. But, you know, there's every chance that someone like him, like Ashcroft, just drops a stinker score next week. I know he's playing North Melbourne, so that's probably not the case. But there's probably another one coming. And, yeah, it just means you can kind of free up cash easily without kind of degrading your team, considering that, like, a lot of us are running out of good bench options or cash generating bench options. I think looking at my team, I've got Zach Reed still sitting on the bench, who probably needs to go if I'm not getting him on field. But I've also got players like Caden Cleary, 500k. The rest are all meddling around that 400k mark. Some of them lower, so it's pretty hard to find cash. So sometimes these kind of almost sideways or downgrade to mid prices are a good way to go to free up some of that cash and, you know, get it elsewhere.
We saw it last week with the Clayton Oliver to Ned Long sort of trade that everyone was pulling. It could be a bit like that, where a struggling defender or one of those rookies who's made you a lot of coin, you sort of just flick off, you make a little bit of coin, and their scoring doesn't give you any less, if not more potential for more. So, yeah, someone like Clary who misses a week, Ned Long was a pretty easy choice because he's scoring, 85 to 95. Sort of everyone made a quick 100 or 200k off a primo. So, yeah, Jaden Shaw would be a good option. Otherwise, in my eyes, it's like a Bice or an O'Sullivan, but that's my.
You could probably even do a bit of DPP action as well and maybe flick off. I won't mention him now, but another player I'm going to target in my hot take of the week. My pod, just before we get onto my pod, my two pods, Jake Lloyd and Lloyd Meek, went with the Lloyds. They both sucked last week, but great call on Darcy Cameron. Everyone's going to be targeting Gawn and Cherry as their R1, R2. Do you think if you went out on a bit of a limb and kind of went Cameron as your R2, you could get a bit of point of difference there? Plus, there's the potential that, Cherry does have that kind of hamstring, has been carrying that kind of hamstring concern. If they try to rest him or something like that, I reckon there's good potential there to get a bit of a jump on the competition. What do you think?
Well, Cameron played on the weekend with Mason Cox. Obviously, Reece Stanley got subbed out of the game, so it's fantastic news for Collingwood Ruckman. It made their life really easy. But, he's still put up a good score with a second ruck in the team. The one thing I like is he's going to play in a winning team. Collingwood obviously looking like a top 8 side. North and Melbourne probably looking like bottom 8 sides. So when you play in those bottom 8 sides, we've seen Toby Nankervis a few times this year. He has to really carry the load. And as a big man, it can put a lot of stress on the body and a lot of stress on the big boys. They're not used to carrying that much load. Like, it's crazy when we see like Rowan Marshall, Toby Nankervis, Tristan Xerri and Max Gawn all playing in bottom sides, but all, putting the team on their back and carrying them. It can take its toll later in the season, so I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Darcy Cameron has a pretty, not saying it's cruisy, nothing's cruisy in footy, but, a cruisier ride to round 23, is it this year, round 24?
24, I think.
And doesn't have, especially with Mason Cox around, the ability to rest up forward. He's probably a better forward as well. Might have a little less toll. I wouldn't be surprised if we see, a Gawn or a Xerri get a bit of stress, in the back end of the year, whether it's an injury, whether it's needing a rest, whether it's, having too much workload on their plate.
Yeah, no, I think it's not a bad idea. Like, I think if you want to go different to the competition, you're not going to lose out on Cameron, and there is the potential that, one of those guys, especially like a Gawn who's getting on a bit. We saw him miss a fair bit last year. I think he even copped a hit to the throat this week, and I was like, oh, there goes the voice box again, the larynx, So, like, there's a few things like that I'm worried about. So, maybe he's like that. I guess not as young as Cherry, but I think he's 29, so he's got a little bit more, longer in the legs, you know what I mean, and could go a little bit longer and not get as injured and not need rests and stuff like that. So I don't mind the option. All right, so speaking of rucks, my pot of the week is actually Tim English. So looking at last 3 averages, I always find that's a great indicator of form, obviously. So looking at the last 3 averages, he's second only to Gawn, and Gawn has come up against like the 2 easiest ruck matchups. going around at the moment, or were going around anyway. So, so West Coast obviously give up a heap of points to their rucks. Toby Nankervis always seems to kind of let his opponent off the leash a little bit. He's had two really easy ruck games. So it kind of just highlights the feat of how good Tim English has been over the last 3 weeks as well. Played up against Geordie Sweet this week, who probably didn't have a bad game in the ruck. It's just English got off the chain around the ground. And I think it's particularly good to get off the chain against Geordie Sweet, because Geordie was, up until round 5, the hardest ruck to play against. I think that's tapered a little bit now, but it's still a hard it's still a hard person to play against. So Tim English putting up a big 140 is probably good signs, and he's another one of those rucks that if you wanted to go against the grain and go against the top two, then he could be an option. What are your thoughts there?
I think is he 8 or 9% owned as well?
He's really lowly owned.
Yeah, in previous years I would have had him probably 30 to 40% on. You're set and forget would have almost been English and gone, but now the emergence of Jerry and Cameron and some of these Meeks, sort of the ruck game's spread a bit. He had a bit of an average start of the year, but I will say, you mentioned Geordie Sweet, sort of one of the harder rucks to go up against. He's known as like a tagging ruck. So when you're coming up against a tagging ruck and you have 3 goals and 27 disposals, like that's red hot form. He's pretty much played a better game than any midfielder has on the weekend. 27 touches and 3 snags. Sweet had the 46 hit-outs, so he got beaten in the hit-out game. But when you've got Bontempelli, Ed Richards, Libba, and Sanders rolling through the midfield, I mean, to have 27 and 3 goals in a team full of, everyone says Bulldogs is full of midfielders, pretty impressive stuff. So I'd be actually scared to see what he could do against a not tagging ruck, against maybe like a West Coast Bailey Williams or Matt Flynn, where he could have kicked 6 goals and have 50 touches. Who knows? But he's playing as a fifth midfielder at the moment, is what I'm trying to say. Fourth midfielder.
Jeez, you mentioned all those Western Bulldogs midfielders. You forgot the best one of them all, the baby bond, Joel Frazier.
Yeah, he's back. Who would have thought?
I'm pretty keen just owning him in a few draft and keeper leagues on the way he's going. Anyway, let's get into some of the... do you have any more of the pods you want to talk about?
Pull up 2 more pods. We mentioned Norton the other week. You mentioned him 2 weeks ago, and Darcy went down. Scored a 60-odd last week, but then obviously played Port Adelaide. They won by a lot. It was 60 points. Might even be more. Was it 90 points? I don't... Turned it off at 3/4 time. Stop watching. But he scored 95 on the weekend. So obviously with no Sam Darcy, he's the key forward target. So if you're in draft leagues and he's on waiver wires, just look at his fixture. If you think it's a game that Western Bulldogs going to win, probably fairly red hot to kick 2, 3, 4 goals and score 80 plus. So could just be one to watch fixture dependent. Cal Wilkie's one that could be really smoky for Classic. He'd be actual crazy to do it, but I don't think he's in any waiver wires and draft at the moment. He's going too well for that. But he's averaging 100 in the last 3, and he's only 0.98% owned. Plays Carlton this week, which I think probably matches Cal Wilkie in terms of uncontested marks or just taking lots of marks down back. Plays West Coast the week after, which we know is probably an easy team to take a lot of uncontested marks. And he also has Melbourne before his bye, so another team that probably aren't as efficient inside 50. And you see defenders take uncontested marks. If you wanted a smoky who's really point of difference to roll down back, Cal Wilkie could just be a crazy option if you're just feeling like doing something psycho this week.
I feel like that is a bit of a psycho move. I love Cal Wilkie though, especially in the draft space. He's always a player that goes way later than what his potential scoring output is. I think everyone's just scared off by the role, but he's not like a super... He just takes a lot of marks, really, which can equate to a lot of fantasy scoring. So, I like that. Anyways, let's get on to some hot takes. We'll start with mine this week, and this kind of alludes to what I was mentioning a bit earlier when it came to Sheasel. But my hot take is Caleb Daniel is finished as a top 6 forward for this season. So he's only averaged 77 from his last 3. And obviously Harry Sheasel, after the Kane Corn comments and stuff like that, I think they've kind of resigned to Harry Sheasel just going to that half-back role. He's played there the last couple of weeks. And he's putting up some big scores there. I think he had a big, 130 last week. I think Caleb Daniel could be one of the trade-out options that you might need to move on before he loses too much cash. Like, if you're at a point, I think I've got 2 rookies left on field. We'll probably only have 1 after this week. I'm at a point where you were talking about before where you could do a downgrade to KEIDEAN Coleman or something like that via a bit of DPP. I could go, I could move KEIDEAN Coleman, Caleb Daniel to defence, kind of trade in, via DPP, I could trade him out and put someone, in his place up forward, and then, do a bit of reshuffling, put Finn O'Sullivan back or whatever, and I could, do a bit of DPP, stuff like that to actually get one of those guys in. So that could be a downgrade option for me to actually upgrade, someone like Levi Ashcroft to another primo or something like that, just to kind of get that second to last rookie off the ground. But on the flip side of that, I think Shears was a must-have on the back of his kind of change as well. Like, what we've seen over the last 3 years, if he's playing that half back role, he's probably one of the best fantasy scorers in the competition, and it looks like that rolls back. So I guess my hot take is Caleb Daniel was finished and Harry Sheezel is back. What are your thoughts?
I think Harry Sheezel was definitely playing a kick behind the play all game, just one out in the hole, really uncontested, which is what Kane's been slagging him for. But I mean, it works, doesn't it? He's having plenty of the ball, and he's a pretty good ball user when he has it. So, I just can't work out why Caleb Daniel has dropped off. Like, it's just an annoying one where he's still taking the same amount of kickouts. Like, he averaged 6.2 kickouts or something in the first 3 rounds when he was going bonkers. Still having 6.2 kickouts a game. Sheasel was in the team. Fisher was in the team a little bit as well, and Fisher's out, so like another sort of uncontested pig off the halfback. He's just not getting the ball. It's so weird. He has quarters where he shows glimpses of being prime Caleb Daniel and having 11 touches, but he had just 2 disposals in that first quarter on the weekend. And it's just really confusing to work out why he's having those quarters where he's just having 2-3 touches and not being cheap, uncontested outside runner Caleb Daniel. So I think there's probably a couple bigger issues in people's teams this week, but he's the one that's like, if you flag it early and you get onto it early and he does have a massive drop-off coming, you can jump on. You can get a bit of a jump on the rest of the comp, because say he puts up another 60 in the next 2 weeks, he's going to be the most traded out player in 3 weeks' time. So if you've already flicked him 3 weeks early, you've saved yourself 120 points if you trade him well, and a bit of coins. Yeah. So, yeah, it's all about jumping the comp there.
Especially if you flick into someone like Petrarca as well. I think, as you mentioned before, I think the issue is because Sheezel is that kick behind the play, he's always available on the switch and stuff like that, and just those kind of, if they've got nothing down the line, they'll go short again. And Sheezel seems to be the one in the pocket where, in those kind of pockets of space where Caleb Daniel, I think, was that guy before. Like, if you think of kickouts, like 6 kickouts is only, 18 points? It's not like a huge way for him to score each week. It's more about how he's kind of receiving the ball. He'd be the one who'd kick it out, run to the next
when
pocket.
He does the kick out, so he will do the kick out and then follow up with the hand pass. Like, he's the most, like, the worst, like the number one for doing that in the comp. I say he's the worst, but for fantasy, it's great to watch. It's like, oh my god, this guy's a pig. But the little chip kick. But when you're little chip kicking and you're hitting Harry Sheezel, is he giving the hands? I saw it a few times on the weekend. He was Daniel was taking the kick out, and I was actually trying to film it for a TikTok. I was like, this would be a great TikTok. Caleb Daniel racking up 4 easy disposals, but it just wasn't happening. It wouldn't come because he was kicking it to Sheezel, and then Sheezel was going down the line. So maybe that might be the issue, is that Sheezel's a good ball user and they want him taking the kicks out of defence, and he's just he's not the ball user they're using anymore. So that might be the issue. But
I reckon that is the issue. Anyways, what's your hot take for the round?
I've nailed my last 2, which I'm pretty happy with. I said Bond would go 120 in his first game. I said Harry should go 150 last week, so he was on track at half time. I think he was on 80 at half time. Ended with a 136, so we got close. This week, I reckon there'll be a low scoring round. I think that's what my hot take's going to be. Is last week we saw scores of 2,400 plus. But fixture-wise this week, Richmond and West Coast are sort of the teams that we like to bully up on, and when our primos play, and we expect massive, juicy scores. But Richmond play West Coast this week, so it sort of negates those juicy scores we've been seeing in a lot of our premiums. Carlton and St Kilda are sort of teams I like to sort of match up fantasy-wise as well, and they play each other this week. And then we've got games in Darwin and Hobart, which can be a bit iffy for fantasy scores as well. They can still dish up some good scores, but I think sometimes premiums, when they play in the smaller decks, smaller ovals, you can be a bit dicey with like consistency in terms of your primos. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see some lower scoring this week across the board.
I will just flag, though, I think Tristan Sherry had 164 points the last time he played in Hobart, so maybe it might not be too bad for the Rucks in some of those games.
There's some who dominate the smaller grounds, but there's some who maybe a bit inconsistent. They might have a good score one year on the smaller deck and a really bad score the next. Whereas when Pendlebury plays the MCG, consistency like rules out. But when they play these smaller ovals with wind affected games and weather affected games, obviously Darwin's going to be hot and sweaty, and Hobart's going to be cold and potentially rainy. So very different conditions. So they're not used. Players aren't used to. So I just think don't be surprised to see a few of your primos score 60s. And in the same sense, probably don't rage trade them next week either. If they've someone who have played at TO or Hobart's that and someone who's had an affected game by maybe the cramping up in the Darwin weather. I could see a few rage trades next week of players that probably don't deserve it.
Yeah, no, fair point. There are some. I did have a look at the matchups this week as well. There are a few doozies, especially in drafts and stuff like that. When you have, your captains kind of matter a bit more and stuff like that. I'm a bit nervous about a few of them, but we'll have to just play it as it lies, I guess. It's probably time to wrap that one up this week, Checkers. What are your trade plans this week?
At the moment, they're still trying to get rookies off the field. I got Davidson, I got Kako, I've got O'Sullivan, not on field, all of them, but O'Sullivan and Bice that are probably getting ready to wrap up and getting ready to move on. Just trying to get Davidson. Probably this week it'd be Davidson and Kako. If I choose to pull the pin on Kitty Coleman, waiting on teams, might be a O'Sullivan to KEIDEAN Coleman. Just trying to go one up, one down. Struggling to find out who that one down is at the moment, though.
Yeah.
Not a lot of good options. So Boxall was great last week. Hoping we can find someone like Boxall get a game this week.
Yeah, that's my thoughts. Someone like him as well. I've had Zach Reid on the bench for weeks now. He's putting up 80s and 90s, and I feel like I've got the other defenders that are performing well. Obviously, he was better than Bice this week, but I've got primo options because defense is the one spot I actually loaded up on because I thought there was better mid-priced options everywhere else, but not in defence, especially with, Kitty Coleman not being ready and stuff like that. So I loaded up in defence thinking it was a great strategy, probably playing one less midfielder. But, a few of those rookies came through that we probably didn't expect. So essentially what I need to do is downgrade him. Then hopefully he has a shit score as well. So I can get ahead of the competition there. And then that way I can put that money onto someone else and try to get someone else up to a primo. Probably looking at Levi, even though it kind of seems a bit
You've been really against Levi this whole podcast. He's just had his best game of his career.
I know. But the likelihood is he's going to go down to score a 60 next week. And I feel like everyone will be too tentative to trade him. But it's mainly like he's the only rookie I've got that has significant cash on his head. Like he's 700k. Like it's not much to get him up to a Nick Dacos or something like that if I need to, as opposed to if I try to take Xavier Lindsay up to someone, the max I can probably get is to like 850, 950k, which is a bit of an awkward price at the moment. Like you could get a Jack Steele or something like that in, but I'm not sure if that's the best option. But I'm going to stick fat with getting the rookies off the ground before I do anything else. So it's probably going to be along those lines. Anyways, anything you want to plug? Anything you got coming up, or what's the go?
We've just announced the biggest game of Div 12 Resis, which is pretty exciting.
That's right. Yep.
Being played at Norwood Oval, which obviously held some games at Gather Round, so that'll be good fun, getting to play on an AFL standard oval.
Absolutely.
Still chaos. We've these things take weeks to plan, and we've got 4 weeks till the game from announcement, which is the shortest we've ever given ourselves to plan this. So it's going to be probably my life for the next 4 weeks, just every day. I've got up this morning at 8 and was on the emails, and I've had probably 90 messages from people asking if they can play in it, and brands are starting to reach out and want to get involved. So it's event management stuff that probably I don't have a big desire in doing. I love playing fantasy and I love doing the TikToks and making videos, and next few weeks are going to be chaos, but it'll all be worth it when we get to play at Norwood Oval and get to roll out with a few ex-footy players, and it'll be a good night, hopefully. So
now, is it SA versus All-Stars I saw? It's not going to be a Lockleys versus Elizabeth or anything like that?
South Australia versus the All-Stars, and we're going to have 6 local footy clubs represented in it, so it's coming probably at the back end of this week. But we'll be having footy clubs apply to have a player in the game, and if your player gets picked to play in the game, you'll get a sponsorship, which includes cash and includes like new footies and equipment and stuff that we've got donated. So it'll be sort of the aim of the last few years have been giving back to local clubs. So the first year we gave back to Lockleys, last year we gave back to Elizabeth. This year spread the net a bit wider and try help 6 struggling clubs in South Australia. So that's the aim of this year's.
And I'm assuming the applications are going to be, you have to be a Div 12 standard player. You can't
we
just
want
go
to see your best resi, yeah.
Yeah.
We want you to see your best resi so we can chuck you in the mix alongside the likes of, last year we had Tom Jonas, Bernie Vince, Prime Train, Daniel Motlop. So you get the six premium resis from local footy clubs in SA are going to get to play alongside ex-AFL talent and, some celebrities and stuff. So it should be good fun in that sense, seeing these guys who have been battlers all around SA footy getting their crack on the big stage at Norwood. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But yeah, you ran a marathon on the weekend. I need to hear about your time because I haven't asked you about that. I did see that you did the marathon.
Wasn't as good as I planned. I wanted to break 4 hours. I ran it in 4:20, so not too bad. I probably went out a little too hard too early and gassed myself for the last probably 10 kilometres. But a good lesson learned, I think. Keen to have a crack at another one to try to get under that 4 hour mark. And as soon as I can walk without, I'm able to bend my legs again and bend over and pick up things and not cramp and spasm every 30 seconds, I reckon I'll get back into the running and try to beat that target. But a little bit disappointed in the result, but just proud of myself. I got it done, I guess, and got there in the end. So, yeah.
Finish it off. Chafing, bleeding of the nipples, anything crook or...
Well, I've always had I've kind of well prepared for the chafing and the bleeding nipples because I do kind of get them a little bit. The nipples actually weren't a problem. Chafing would have been an issue if I didn't lather myself up with the anti-chafe cream. What I didn't anticipate was under the arms, rubbing against the side of my body. I did
rash.
not. That's never happened to me before. So I got arm chafe. Rubbing against my running top. So never had that one before. That's another lesson learned. I'll make sure I lather up the inside of the arms next time. So yeah.
The whole body in anti-chafe cream.
That's it. Anyways, let's wrap it up there. Thanks for watching, people, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.